Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen ruins OP's car and refuses to pay for it. My daughter ruined my car, doesn't want to fix it, and my wife agrees with her. I'm a 46-year-old man with a 19-year-old daughter who attends university in a city about an hour away. I cover all of her expenses, including rent, tuition, meals, everything. This summer, she almost exclusively used my car. I think I drove it once a month. About a month ago, she scratched the bumper while pulling into the garage. Weeks later, she decided to do something about it. I didn't hound her, I left it up to her. She apparently Googled and found that rubbing toothpaste on the scratches could remove them, so she did that. It removed some, but also took off the clear coat. Not a big deal, it's just a bumper. But that's not the part that I'm here to discuss. The car was dirty, so she decided to wash it in the driveway instead of going to the coin car wash. Some of the caked-on clay on the driver's side wouldn't come off, so instead of using soap, she decided to use toothpaste. She proceeded to scrub the front quarter panel, driver's side doors, front and back, and the rear quarter panel with a brace of toothpaste. After it dried, she noticed the swirls and realized she had sanded off the clear coat. Now, it's an older car, 2013, but I've maintained it and it's mine. I've kept it in perfect condition and I'm the first and only owner. So I was left with an entire driver's side that had swirl marks and looked sanded down. When I saw it, I didn't get angry, I was stunned. I just said I wanted it fixed and that I understood it was a mistake. I explained that the clear coat had been sanded off and that the only way to fix it would likely be to repaint it. She called friends and even contacted my brother-in-law, and they all said the same thing, it would need repainting. She got estimates and someone said they could buff it out. They tried, she paid, but they didn't fix it. The quotes for repainting ranged from $1,200 to $2,000. I brought it up at dinner, and her logic was, 1. It's not like I drive it every day. 2. I could only sell it for maybe $7,000, so it's not worth the cost of repainting. 3. She's trying to save money and work within a budget she has for herself. Then my wife stepped in, and her words, 1. If it were her car, she wouldn't mind. I maintain her car too. 2. Do I expect our daughter to pay $2,500 to repaint my car? And 3. If I caused that damage, would I pay $2,500 myself to get it fixed, given the value of the car? That last point was said in such an accusatory manner, like I'm being unreasonable. Now, here's the deal. I'm in therapy. I've got my own problems, so please understand that I'm very careful and mindful about how I speak to everyone. I'm making effort to be as factual as possible and not negative. This situation bothered me, so I spoke to my therapist, and she advised me to rescind any driving privileges until it's fixed. I also spoke to my sister, whose husband is the brother-in-law my daughter consulted, and she believes that my daughter should take responsibility, and that while it is an expensive mistake, it's on her. Info. Does she have the money to pay you $1,200 to $2,000? If not on hand, how difficult would it be for her to pay you over time? And does she do stupid things like this often? OP. Yes, she worked 39 hours a week. Her only expense she had was gas all summer. The money is on hand. She tries sometimes, but doesn't test her theories or research things before doing them. She has damaged a lot of appliances and a central vac unit by doing things she didn't think through, all of which I replaced. Not the jerk. Time for her to face some consequences for her dumb behavior. Maybe if she had to pay for her mistakes in the past, she may have learned to think or research before acting. These are skills she needs as an adult, and you won't always be able to pay for her poor judgment. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. I've got a truck that I want to have painted, and all of the quotes I've been getting are around $4,000 to $5,000. In 2009, I paid $300 for a really good paint job. Oh, how I hate inflation. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my pregnant wife and putting my foot down after her blow up? We're renting a 2-bedroom house from an older man. Let's call him G for this. I don't know how to really describe G, but older retired military is the closest. This man has been nothing but kind to us, far more than either one of our parents have been. We live in California, and the average rent in our area is $2,600 for a 2-bedroom. At first, we were a bit skeptical because the house was advertised, but G wanted to meet the tenants personally before anything else. The listing stated $2,500, but also mentioned that it was negotiable. We met with G, and I don't know if he liked us or felt sorry for us because we told him our story, but he offered us the place for $1,600. Any problems we've had throughout the 6 years my wife and I have lived in the house were fixed within 48 hours. G is the landlord everyone wishes they had. He isn't money hungry, and if rent is a bit late, he understands as long as you keep him informed. We haven't had an issue with him in 6 years. I asked him why he was renting the house to us so cheaply, and his story broke my heart. He bought the house for his daughter a couple of years before we moved in, but unfortunately, she and her fiancé passed away in an accident, and he couldn't find the heart to sell it, but he also didn't want it to stay empty. During lockdown, when my wife lost her job and I had to take a pay cut, I called him and explained the situation. I asked if it was possible for us to pay a couple of hundred less in rent, and I would pay everything back once lockdown was over. He came over and talked to me and my wife. After 2 hours of talking, he said that he would forgive half of our rent until the whole lockdown situation was done, and then we could just go back to the original contract. I can't describe how happy I was. I thanked him with tears in my eyes. With the $700 saved on rent, we were able to keep our heads above water during that lockdown. That's the kind of man G is. My wife is currently 5 months pregnant. G had some health scares, so we hadn't seen him for the last 6 months. He came over the day before yesterday to tell us he's healthy again, and he will take up the responsibility of managing the property. He saw my wife's belly and asked how far along she was. We told him, and he had this smile from ear to ear and said congratulations. Before he walked off, he said, "Kids are expensive, so as a baby gift from me, let's make the rent an even $1,000 until the baby is born." For some reason, this set my wife off completely. She started yelling at G, calling him an old man who's looking down on us, and saying he could take his useless gift and buzz off with it. She was yelling for about 3 minutes, and every time I tried to stop her, she just got louder and louder. I don't know what got into her, but at the end of her rant, she said, "If you really want to gift us something for our baby, you should not make us pay rent at all. That is what you call a gift." G took everything she said without responding. His face went from happy to completely emotionless. After my wife was done, he just left. I blew up at my wife, asking her what was she thinking, as G never did anything wrong to us. She just started crying and refused to talk to me the rest of the night. Every time I brought it up, she would start crying, but I caught on to the crocodile tears and I told her to just stop because I wanted an explanation. Yesterday morning, before I left for work, I told her she better be ready because, ready or not, when I get home, we would talk about what happened and I wouldn't accept her fake tears. I got a text from G telling me we needed to talk. He asked to meet at the house at 5 and I agreed. We met up at the house and he asked to come in. We sat in the living room and he asked if my wife could join us. She did. He didn't ask why or what happened, he just laid out what will be happening going forward. He said the gift would no longer be happening and he would expect the full rent at the end of the month with no excuses. He said the rent would stay at $1,600 until our lease was up for renewal at the end of the year, and when the lease was over, we are more than welcome to renew it, but he will be charging us market rate for the house. That's more than a $1,000 increase. I tried to talk to him, but he refused to listen and then just walked out of the house. My wife was white as a ghost on the couch and stammered, asking what we were going to do because she knows a $1,000 increase in the rent will lead us back to living paycheck to paycheck. My paycheck is enough to cover every single bill until my promotion in 14 months. I blew up and told her that this is her doing. She asked me to run after G and talk to him or to call him and try to talk to him, but G is refusing. The only message I got back was, "Please contact me if it has something to do with the house, not for any personal matters, as our relationship will only be strictly landlord and tenant, and that is it." My wife is frantically trying to call G and apologize, but he's not answering her calls. She knows her part-time job paycheck might not be enough, and I told her we would need to downsize. She's not happy. I'm not happy with my wife at all, and she's calling me a jerk because I'm mad at her. $1,000 doesn't sound like a lot to some, but for me, it's a lot of money. My wife's paycheck would not even have been touched for rent or anything, but now it has to be, and I told her she will cover the $1,000 if she wants to stay in this house, as I refuse to take up longer hours or more shifts. She's devastated because her part-time job salary might not be enough, and she will have to go back to working full-time. The situation sounds rough, I know, but as I said, I'm up for a promotion at work from my manager's job when he retires in 14 months. I'm assured the job, and I have it in writing. The increase is enough for my wife to work only part-time, but that will only be in 14 months, and she has to cover the missing $1,000 for the rent, as I'm refusing. I don't want to move, but if she doesn't cover the missing $1,000 or can't, then we'll have to. Edit. I asked my wife if G had done something or said something to her that caused her to react like this, and she, in tears, told me no, but she can't or won't give me a reason. In my mind, I took what she said at face value, and I believe that she thinks G was looking down on us, as she said when he made the offer. That $500 would have helped us monumentally, and my wife knows that. She also knows getting a house like the one we currently have, and as good as we have it, is not guaranteed, because we have read numerous stories on Reddit about other landlords, and she herself has always known how lucky we've been. Edit 2. I didn't explain this properly at first. Our lease is up for renewal, but our lease will basically be canceled and not renewed. We will have to reapply for the lease, and the new amount will be market rate. He said that because we've been good tenants so far, he will give us the first option for the house. And I know that this sounds crappy of me, but I am more than sure that G has never hooked up with my wife, and I know that she's never cheated on me. I've never met a man more set on morals and principles. He still wears his wedding ring, even though his wife has been passed for 10 years. When I asked him about a woman or a girlfriend in his life, he said no. His wife is waiting for him, and he will not disappoint her. Dang, she messed up. I would be absolutely livid. I don't think I could even stay with my husband if he pulled something like this. I'd look at him in a whole new light. Not the jerk. Yeah, it crossed my mind how humiliating it would be to be married to someone who would act this way. It would go a long way to souring a relationship altogether for me. Am I the jerk for laughing in my sister-in-law's face when she DNA tested my daughter? I'm a 30-year-old man and I have a 6-year-old daughter. I'm not biologically related to her at all. There is no blood relation between us. I was friends with her mother for most of my childhood. We were always just friends. She had her daughter at 23 with her 25-year-old husband. When my daughter was a newborn, about 3 months old, both her mother and father passed away. I won't go into too much detail for privacy reasons, but it was a workplace accident. My friend and her husband worked in the same building. Both my friend and her husband grew up in less than ideal families and didn't have any siblings, so there wasn't any next of kin for their daughter to go to. However, because I was close with them, I was able to adopt her. Even though I was iffy about the idea of having kids, I didn't want their daughter to grow up in foster care or around people who didn't have a connection to her biological parents, so I stepped in. My parents and siblings know that my daughter is not my biological daughter. My daughter, whom I'll call Lily for this post, also knows she's adopted, and she knows what happened to her parents. Lily does not look like me at all. She looks exactly like her mother and biological father. Most people assume that I'm her biological dad and that she just takes after her mom. I don't usually correct people when they assume this because it just seems unnecessary. My brother has been with his fiancée for about 2 years now. A few weeks ago, we were all meeting up at my parents' house and my sister-in-law saw an old picture of me, my friend, and her husband. She pointed to my friend and asked who she was, and I explained that was Lily's mother. My sister-in-law got quiet and stood in front of the picture for a while. I didn't think much of it. To clarify, she knows my friend passed, but I guess she didn't know that she had been married or that Lily is not my biological daughter. I suppose she assumed Lily was mine and my friend's biological daughter. My sister-in-law got a DNA test done on Lily behind my back. She used my brother's DNA for the test, and when it came back that they weren't related, she realized that meant Lily and I weren't related. She came up to me with the results and waved them in my face, saying that I was taking care of an affair baby. She said this to me in front of my daughter. I just stared at her for a while before bursting out laughing. I told her I knew Lily wasn't my biological daughter and that this thing called adoption exists. Her face went red and she stormed off. My brother is mad that I embarrassed his fiancée, but I said she embarrassed herself by DNA testing my kid and then parading the results in front of me. What did she expect me to do? What was her goal with this? Did she want me to break down and leave my daughter? My brother said that she thought she was doing the right thing and called me a jerk. I don't feel like a jerk, especially considering my sister-in-law was the one who stuck her nose where it didn't belong. So, was I the jerk? Not the jerk. Not only did your sister-in-law cross a major line by DNA testing her without your permission, but the theatrical way she presented her findings is shockingly insensitive. Forget a pot stirrer, she's operating a drama cauldron. You have every right to be upset, and your brother needs a wake-up call about the boundaries his future wife is willing to bulldoze. Navy wife's view of infidelity is troubling. I, 30 male, work for a defense contractor, which is how I met my wife, Carol, who's 31. We had worked together for a couple of years before dating, and after dating for only 6 months, she proposed to me. We just celebrated our second wedding anniversary. Carol is a U.S. Navy LCDR, and her role is mostly land-based with some special sea duty deployments, short-term. I'm friends with several of the officers and families in her department, and we are very social, like an extended family. Most of her department is on a 3-month deployment with a carrier group, the longest time we have spent apart since we started dating. They've been gone for over a month, and 3 of the wives of her officers and I have been running every morning. We sometimes go out for drinks and keep each other company, as most are far from any family or long-term friends. Last weekend, we were at a local bar, and Mary, who's 25, who is married to one of my wife's junior officers, Tom, got really drunk. At the end of the night, I took away her keys as she was determined to drive home. I ended up taking her home. They live in on-base housing, and I walked and carried her to her door. I got her door open, and she tried to get me to come in. She grabbed me and started kissing me and asked me to stay. I got out of there as quickly as I could. The next morning, she called and apologized for the night before and asked if I could take her back to the bar to retrieve her car. I picked her up, and on the way to the bar, she said she was just feeling lonely, but that she was attracted to me. She suggested we could help each other while our spouses are away. I told her I was flattered, but I could never cheat on my wife. Mary said it wasn't exactly cheating, but I shut the conversation down. Carol and I had a FaceTime chat where I told her about the event and asked if I needed to reach out to Tom to tell him or if that was something my wife would rather do. She gave a big sigh and looked sad, but said that we should just leave it be for now. She said sadly that this was not unusual and it happens on both sides. She has unofficially reprimanded one of her officers for engaging with a non-com since being on board. She doesn't want to tell Tom because it would distract him from his duties and cause stress since there's nothing he can really do about it right now. Additionally, it could start a conversation that might force her to take action as his commanding officer if he's in an open relationship or if he knows that she's cheating. Her group must maintain a high security clearance and this could jeopardize his clearance. Then she said something that I can't stop worrying about. As long as Mary is discreet and it doesn't affect their relationship when Tom returns, then she sees it as no harm, no foul. She went on to say that if she were Tom, she would rather not know as long as we were happy. I don't know if this was her giving me permission to cheat without coming out and saying it, or worse, is she saying that she could justify cheating on me so long as it didn't directly affect me? It bothers me that we can't talk in person for another 8 weeks until she gets back. Update. I woke up this morning to an email from my wife, and now I'm late for work, but I just don't care. The email started off with how I should deal with Mary. She asked me not to say anything to anyone about what happened and that I should continue to be cordial with Mary. It's also better if I avoid times when we are both alone together. She's reaching out to one of the wives to watch over Mary. The video. First thing I noticed in this video was her hair down, her makeup, and her being out of uniform and wearing one of my shirts that she took with her. She said she had mixed feelings about our last conversation and how she left things. After my email, she realized she might have foobarred everything. The video was 20 minutes long, with at least 2 noticeable pauses after she started tearing up. I saw a very mushy and vulnerable side of my wife that I had never seen before, and it hurt me that I couldn't hug her afterwards. Whatever doubts or fears I had were squashed this morning. I just finished watching the video for the 4th time, and I can't get to the end without almost breaking down. She wants me to plan a week away after she gets back. I'm confused. What does she think she foobarred? The video was the night before? Or another FaceTime the next morning? What does her hair and makeup mean? Did she wake up and realize she basically told her hubby cheating is okay? I'm not following. OP. The FaceTime call was when I told her about Mary hitting on me, and she told me the things that kind of triggered me. The video was almost 2 days later, after she realized some of what she told me was confusing, and I emailed her that I was struggling with what she said. She's on board a carrier group at the moment with almost no makeup and her hair high and tight most of the time. She took the time to fix her hair and put on extra makeup to look nice for me. Plus, she had taken a couple of my shirts with her and had put one on instead of her khakis. The extra effort was not lost on me. The part about her not wanting to know and no harm, no foul came at the end of her phone time, and we didn't get to talk it out. Just like me, she felt like the way she left it was troubling and it had already been bothering her even before she got my email. She took 2 shirts that I like to wear around the house and a small bottle of my cologne with her. She says it makes her feel better and helps her fall asleep faster. Update. My wife's group is getting Liberty later this month, and my company is arranging for me to be on site for some tech support a few days before they make port. This will give us 48 hours together before they leave port again. My new dilemma is that the officer's wife, Mary, who made a pass at me, has reached out to me again, this time to apologize and explain. My wife had reached out to another older wife to counsel Mary about the repercussions of inappropriate behavior and to keep an eye on her for a while. Mary apologized to me for putting me in a bad position and also expressed her disappointment that I had told my wife about what had happened. Then she proceeded to explain she wasn't cheating on her husband because they had an open marriage and were free to see others when the Navy separated them. Since I was so friendly with the other wives, she assumed that I had a similar arrangement with my wife. I accepted her apology and said I was flattered, but I wasn't interested. The dilemma is, do I pass this information on to my wife? On one hand, I know this is information she would rather not know, especially while they're deployed. But she might need to know if she plans on telling him at some point about his wife's indiscretions. It could be an awkward conversation where he either doesn't act surprised or upset, or he might come clean about their relationship. In almost any case, my wife will be put in a situation where she might feel compelled to take action she would rather not take. Hey OP, you did the right thing by telling your wife the first time. You were protecting your relationship with your wife by being honest. By holding this new information to yourself, you're doing the right thing again. Your wife likely expressed that she doesn't want to know because the officer hasn't done anything wrong, only the spouse has. The spouse's actions don't matter from the UCMJ's perspective, and neither do yours. Cheating won't get her family thrown off base or her husband reprimanded, unless he knew about it. I don't see anyone mentioning operational capacity here. If this officer is relieved of his post, there isn't likely to be a replacement. The entire crew will have increased responsibilities for the duration of the deployment. By giving him the information directly when he gets home, you give him the opportunity to protect himself, thereby protecting your wife from command issues. There's nothing wrong with protecting someone when you have the ability to. You're protecting a lot more than just the husband by keeping this information private. The officers' corps is woven together, and losing one officer can affect dozens or hundreds of other people, commissioned and enlisted. OP, your assessment was spot on. Her biggest concern was having to relieve him and not having anyone competent to fulfill his duties. Her teams were already spread pretty thin and were struggling to keep their timetables. Military life is weird. Honestly, no disrespect to anyone in the military, but it sounds like poison for a relationship. There's a reason the divorce rate is twice as high among military than civilians. There are hurdles to the relationship that don't exist for almost any other career. Am I wrong for ghosting my ex because she's married now? My friends think I'm wrong for blocking my ex, who is married, because she keeps calling and messaging me. I wanted to ask if what I'm doing is right or if I should keep in touch with her. I dated Lisa for 4 years and we broke up 2 years ago. Lisa told me she didn't see a future with me and wanted to call things off. There were many reasons and I knew it was coming. Lisa came from a wealthy family and we met in college. Our relationship was great during the college years. However, after we graduated and got jobs, it became clear that I would never be able to provide the lifestyle she was used to. She hated the small apartment we rented because I wanted to pay off my student loans quickly, and she resented that I couldn't afford to take her on nice vacations. It sucked, but I couldn't blame her. I loved Lisa deeply, but I also knew she deserved the life she wanted. After we broke up, we still had lingering feelings and stayed friends for a few months. We had mutual friends and would meet regularly. I never hated Lisa. In fact, I cherished the memories of the 4 years we were together, but I was also acutely aware that we came from different worlds and that she shouldn't have to settle because of me. Still, it was hard to let go completely, and sometimes I wondered if I'd ever truly get over her. We drifted apart after Lisa started dating a family friend. I met him a few times at parties. He knew Lisa and I had dated, and though he was polite, I started avoiding her and focused on work. Eventually, I moved to another city and lost touch with Lisa. I heard from mutual friends that she got married 6 months ago. I wasn't invited to the wedding, but I was happy for her. I also dated someone briefly last year, but right now, my career is my main focus. That's what I need to believe. 3 weeks ago, out of the blue, I get a call from an unknown number. It was Lisa. She started with small talk and we caught up on each other's lives. She told me about the new house that she and her husband had just bought and how busy she'd been. I told her about my work and my new life. It was nice, like catching up with an old friend. She gave me her new number and the call lasted about 20 minutes. Although I found it odd, I figured she might have thought about me and decided to reach out. The next day, she messaged me and sent me a few photos of her new house. I complimented her on them. 2 days later, she called me again, saying she was driving and thought about chatting. We talked about my new city, my new friends, and even gossiped about our old mutual friends. Then she started sending me photos from a recent party where they all met up. Over the next 2 weeks, Lisa began calling me almost every day. I ignored most of her calls, but she always said she had free time and wanted to talk. She started sending me TikToks, memes, and messages, initiating conversations all the time. At first, I brushed it off, thinking she was just being friendly, but it felt wrong. Lisa is married, and I shouldn't be talking to her so frequently. The more she reaches out, the more unsettled I became. Was she unhappy in her marriage? Was she just lonely? Or was I reading too much into it? Last Friday, I finally messaged her saying that it felt inappropriate for us to talk so often, given that she's married now. She replied almost immediately, saying there's nothing wrong with us being good friends like before. I didn't want to continue, so I told her that we needed to stop talking for a while because I needed to focus on work. After that, I blocked her number. She called our mutual friend Jess, crying about how I was rude and blocked her. Jess told our other friends, and some of them called me, saying I was being unreasonable to treat Lisa that way and cut her off. I don't understand how no one sees that it's wrong for Lisa to call her ex when she's happily married after more than a year of no contact. It doesn't make sense, but maybe I'm the one who's missing something. Am I being unreasonable with Lisa, or was it right for me to block her for both our sakes? And if I'm right, why do I still feel so conflicted? You had very good reasons for being uncomfortable with this very weird situation. I don't understand where those so-called friends are insisting that you owe it to your ex to carry on whatever sort of emotional affair there was. She is anything but happily married. Don't let her draw you into her BS drama. Happily married people aren't sniffing around their exes. The penny has dropped for Lisa that her new husband just doesn't cut it, and she got married for all the wrong reasons. OP is right to go no contact. She made her bed, and it's time to lie in it. My Karen roommate stole from me, so her wallet vanished. Back in college, I had better credit than my 3 other roommates, so I put our internet and TV under my name, otherwise the deposit would have been $600. The cable company offered me a $300 Visa gift card upon sign-up. 2 months later, I called them because the gift card never arrived. They tell me that they sent it a few weeks ago, and eventually I'm able to find out from Visa that someone used it at the Whataburger, Target, and liquor store near my house. I'm ticked off because obviously one of my roommates had used it, but I didn't know which one. A few weeks later, roommate number 2 complains that their $200 birthday gift card to Target has gone missing. His mom still had the receipt, and the store was able to tell her that someone used it at the Target near our house. He's obviously ticked off too, but we've now realized it's probably one of the other 2 roommates. A couple of weeks after that, roommate number 3's wallet disappears. We turned the house upside down looking for it, and we knew it had to be in the house because her car key is attached to her wallet, and her car is parked at the house. She is absolutely frantic, sobbing, screaming, hyperventilating, etc., throwing crap everywhere, and just having an absolute meltdown while tearing the house apart. We had never seen her behave like this, so we're all kind of surprised she'd be that upset about her wallet. It's stressful, sure, but I genuinely was concerned about how she was reacting. She says the gift card thief must have taken it, implying that it's roommate number 4, the only person who hasn't had something stolen yet. A few days after that, I found her wallet in the trunk of my car. We had gone to get groceries together, and I guess she had just laid it in the trunk while we were unloading. I'm like, "Whoa, I found your wallet." And then I open it up because I'm just excited to confirm that I did indeed find her wallet. Bam! Both stolen gift cards front and center. No doubt. The Visa gift card has my name printed on it, and roommate number 2's mom had written something in Sharpie on his gift card. I realized she had a meltdown because she was afraid we'd find out that she was the thief. I left the wallet, cash and all, right where it was, pushed up against the inner lip of the trunk so you couldn't see it unless you leaned further into the car. A locksmith wouldn't make her new keys without the title, and the title was in the glove box of her locked car. All in all, she spent about $500 replacing her driver's license, title, and keys, not to mention not being able to drive her car for 2 weeks. I moved out of state with her wallet still in my car, finally tossed it in the trash several months later. Sometimes the universe assists you with petty revenge. Sorry if you see this, Chelsea. It was me. This happened over 10 years ago, and I'm happy to report that we've all gone to therapy since then, and we're thankfully no longer terrible human beings. A couple of things to address. Why didn't you confront her? I hated confrontation. I was a huge people pleaser, and I wanted everyone to like me, and I enjoyed watching her suffer. Again, therapy. I'm thankfully no longer like this. Visa gift cards don't have names. Some of them do. The Target gift card itself said happy birthday, and my friend's mom wrote, "To my favorite son," underneath. It was still semi-legible when I found her wallet. Locksmiths don't make car keys. Apparently, some do. In the end, she had her car towed to the dealership. I do remember she called a locksmith the first day her wallet was missing because she initially thought it was in her car. She was super mad that the locksmith charged her for the weekend visit without actually unlocking her car. Was he taking advantage of a stupid college kid? Maybe. This was over a decade ago. I was 21, and I'm sure that my brain did not fully absorb the details of her whole ordeal. Turn her into the cops. Bro, have you met college students? Do you know how much illegal stuff they do? It briefly crossed my mind, but petty revenge was far more satisfying. She had an absolute meltdown and missed a few days of work at a newish job dealing with all of this. Am I the jerk for telling my son's pregnant girlfriend that if she keeps disrespecting me, I'll kick her out of my house? I, 43 female, have a son who's 18, who got his high school girlfriend, who was also 18, pregnant. It was obviously an unplanned pregnancy, and it resulted in my son's girlfriend getting kicked out of her house by her mom. I never liked the girl, but I obviously couldn't let her live on the streets now that she's carrying my grandbaby, so I let her live in our house. Now both she and my son gave up on college for the near future, and my son is now working a full-time job so he can provide for them in the future. The problem is that his girlfriend refuses to do anything, absolutely anything all day. She just locks herself in my son's room eating snacks and watching videos on my son's computer. I need to drag her out to just help me with cooking and to clean up at least the room she's staying in. But she's always complaining about how I'm working her like a slave, even though she's already in constant pain because of her pregnancy, and then she'll come crying to my son about the treatment of her. Mind you, she doesn't have a high-risk pregnancy. I know that because my husband and I are the ones who are fully paying for her medical controls, and I don't put her up to do tasks like cleaning the toilet or anything similar. However, she really crossed the line when after I got dressed up, she asked me where I was going, and I told her I was getting ready for church. Her exact response was, "I didn't know there were churches that allowed people to dress the way that you are." At that point, I absolutely had it with her, and I told her straight up that I don't care who she is. I won't allow her to disrespect me while living in my house, and if she can't keep her attitude in check, then she can get out of my house. She pretty much started crying at that point and immediately called my son, who later on also gave me an attitude for treating his girlfriend like garbage when I don't know what she's going through. Eye roll. My husband also thinks that while she was definitely out of line, that she was probably only acting out because of pregnancy hormones, and that I could have handled the situation better without straight up threatening to leave her homeless. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You should make it clear to your son that his girlfriend needs to earn her keep ASAP. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.